Good night. I have a good topic to talk about tonight. And tonight I am going to be talking about how to get a green card on your own without your abusive spouse, your abusive son or daughter who's 21 and up and who is a citizen, or without a parent if you're under 25. Now, let me formally introduce myself. I'm U.S. immigration attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I help clients to get their green cards and status in the United States. And I especially like to come on here and talk about ways to fix your immigration status, especially if you are in a pickle. You're here, you're without status, and you're trying to fix your status. And so tonight, as I said before, I'm going to talk about one of those topics, and that is, what if you have a U.S. citizen or resident spouse, you have a U.S. citizen or resident parent and you're under 25, or you have a U.S. citizen son or daughter who's 21 and up, but they are not applying for you, they're not available to apply for you, and the reason being that they are mistreating you. They're abusing you or mistreating you or subjecting you to extreme cruelty. Then in this case, this could be a path for you to fix your own status and not be dependent on someone else to do it for you. Now, while I am going to talk about this topic, I also want to let you know that I am here to answer your U.S. immigration related questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments and I will answer your questions. Doesn't matter that your question is not related to the topic that I'm talking about. I will still prioritize your questions. So in the case that you are being mistreated or you're being subjected to extreme cruelty by a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, if you're under 25, a parent or a citizen son or daughter who's 21 and up, you could apply for your own permanent residence. So first, let's talk about qualifying for this. How do you know you qualify for this? So Mandy, Habib, babysitters are not considered essential workers, even though they would be essential to parents, of course. They're not considered, and it depends on what concept you're talking about. In the within immigration, while essential workers is a type of term that has been used since the pandemic started, it doesn't necessarily have a legal basis in gaining status in the United States yet. I think you may be alluding to the legislation that's pending in Congress. Hi there, Raisa. It's nice to see you. That's pending in Congress right now. And a part of it is that certain essential workers may be able to apply for legal status in the United States if it is passed and they're included. However, the legal definition of essential workers would depend on that legislation. And so if they somehow include a category that would fit childcare or babysitters or a nanny within that essential workers category, then it could very well be. But right now, there's no babysitters would not necessarily be considered essential workers generally. And it just depends on what context you're talking about. In immigration, there's nothing that would provide a status or for an essential worker, such as a babysitter. How are they processing employment-based green cards at the embassies? So there's no ban on the employment-based green cards, and so it depends on what's going on at the particular embassy. They may be backlogged right now because of the situations with COVID, cancellations, closings. Some embassies around the world might still be closed because of the COVID situation. So it really depends on the embassy. But on a whole, there's no ban on employment-based green cards anymore. Trump had administered a ban on certain green cards. However, that has been lifted. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that was in line to get one is just going to all of a sudden be processed. They have to still work through that backlog. Hi there, Adam. It's nice to see you. I would like to know if there's any possible way to call USCIS regarding an I-601A. So if you have an I-601A pending, you could always check the status online, and if there is some pressing issue that you would like to contact them about, then they would be willing to route you to the right place to be able to discuss your case. But it really depends on the circumstances. Opening a delivery account for someone who doesn't have social, can the person be considered essential? So Mandy Habib, you're welcome. So not necessarily. So opening a delivery account for someone who doesn't have socials. So I don't know in what context you're talking about. Now, it's essential. It's really going to depend on if you're also talking about the legislation and possible inclusion of essential workers in that legislation, in that proposed law, then it's going to depend on the definition of essential. Now, when you're talking about essential outside of the immigration context, it's going to depend on any kind of benefits, the policies, and how they define essential workers in the policy of the state or in the policy of the city that you may be working in. So an essential worker and the definition is going to vary. For example, during the pandemic, when certain individuals, hi there, Dark Horse 45, certain individuals could go outside of their homes despite the fact that there were limitations on the times that we could go out. Those individuals and who were essential workers was fairly broad. Individuals who worked in grocery stores were considered essential workers, healthcare workers, support workers that were at the hospital, for example, employees of Amazon were considered essential workers. But that doesn't mean that within the immigration context that they're going to be considered essential workers. It just depends. I took fingerprints in December last year. So Sugi, I would like to know if there's any possible way to, okay, so you took fingerprints in December of last year. So the fingerprints doesn't necessarily mean that the process is going to go faster. You could look at the form, the service center that's processing your case, and look at the range of time that they're taking to process your case. And if you are outside of that processing time, you may submit a case inquiry to determine what's going on there. After your adjustment of status is approved, how long would be the wait for the green card? So could be a few weeks to a few months. Right now there is a backlog. Thanks so much, Bernicia, for the rose. There is a backlog on the production of green cards, and so you might see a delay. So I would say you could give it 2 weeks. It could range from 2 weeks to even a few months. My I-94 is still pending approval, and I want to go home to my country, but planning to go January. What will happen to my visa? Are they going to cancel it? So I don't know what all the circumstances are, Raisa, in your situation. And so I wouldn't be able to even answer your question in general terms. I don't know if you're applying to replace your I-94 or what went on there. Is there any way to relocate to the U.S. without a U.S. citizen, spouse, or claiming asylum or refugee status? So you have to have some sort of link to the United States. You have to have an employer, humanitarian means, which would be asylum. You'd have to have a relative, not just a spouse, but do you have a parent? Do you have a son or daughter who's 21 and up and who's a citizen? Do you have, and in this case, a spouse, but you said you outside of a spouse. Not planning to live permanently, but like to stay for a few months. So live life with Vonnie. So that would be a visitor's visa. So if you want to come here for a few months, you could do that with a visitor's visa, and you would have to apply to the embassy in your home country to be able to get the visa. My friend has a green card but stayed out of the country for over 20 years. Can she apply for SB1 for entry? So 20 years is quite the stretch. No, it's not. I'm not saying that she can't, of course, because whether she can or not is really going to depend on the circumstances. I mean, it is a stretch, but did she continue to maintain her status even outside of the U.S.? Was there something that happened for the last 20 years that really kept her from returning to the United States? And so it's the answer to that question is going to require detailed evaluation. However, one of the requirements of applying for the SB1 is to show that your friend continued to maintain ties in the U.S. and also that there was something that occurred in their background that caused that was beyond their control, that caused them to have to stay in the country outside of the U.S. And to 20 years is a stretch to explain how that could be. Is hotel worker an essential worker or not? So it's going to, once again, it depends on what context you're talking about. Is it necessary for your immigration lawyer to come to the interview with me? So it's highly recommended, just because if something comes up at the interview that you may not necessarily understand, especially within the legal context, the attorney can step in to advocate for you. The attorney can have your back. So that's where while it's not necessary, it is recommended. If someone has a visitor's visa but has an underlying sickness and can't take the vaccine, now with the visitor's visa, so the visitor's visa, now you would have to, in this case, for the permanent residents, it will be required in the medical exam. However, for the visitor's visa, it's not necessarily something that may be required. There is testing that's in place already for individuals who are outside of the U.S. who are coming into the country. But for the visitor's visa, you wouldn't go through a medical to confirm that you have had the vaccine. No, it would be up to your doctor to determine whether you are not qualified to get the vaccine. So it costs more. So M3D1, yes, of course, it's going to cost more, but it is a worthy investment. Because having an attorney there, especially if you have doubts about a situation, there's something in your background that you want to make sure you have an advocate or you have someone that has legal know-how to be there, that is worth the investment. So 2 questions. Is an auto mechanic an essential worker? So it depends on, and if these questions are stemming from the immigration legislation that states that an essential worker could also seek legal status, it's really going to depend on the definition in the law itself, if it's passed. And so right now, an auto mechanic, it just depends on what the definition is. I have my interview on coming Monday. Please send me best wishes. Good luck to you. Make sure you prepare. Make sure you follow all the instructions on your notice. If this is a marriage base, make sure that you sit down and prepare with your spouse. know at least the basics about your spouse. I know, especially when you have a new marriage, that you may not know everything, but it surely would look bad if you go into the interview and you don't know the basics about them. You don't know maybe their routine every day, or you don't know which side of the bed they sleep on, or you don't know your in-laws information. So it's important to touch base and make sure you're both consistent and on the facts. Do you need a visa if coming there for medical assistance? So yes, usually life with Vonnie, you would still need a visa. Tanish Clark, what year are they looking at? You should be in the U.S. working as an essential worker. So the year the last I saw, it was on or before January 1st. However, I would have to revisit it, and it depends on what the final language of the legislation is going to say. So it's marriage based to United States citizen. What are the documents I should take and what questions to prepare? So while I can't predict what questions they will ask, make sure that you review your application. Remember everything that's in the application, make sure that you touch base with your spouse. What's your routine? What does the house look like? What's the curtain in your bedroom? What's the color? What did you celebrate for your anniversary? How did you celebrate? What's your favorite holiday? Who are your in-laws? What are their names? What are your birthdays? What's your anniversary date? How did you meet? When did you meet? These are going to be very important. So if you're working off the books but paying taxes, are you classified as an essential? So not necessarily. So working off the books. Now, if you are working the answer here would be, first of all, what is an essential worker in the law, right? And so we would have to look at what that law says about who is an essential worker. So I would not be able to define that. That is something that's dependent on the final legislation. However, it may very well, because the whole point of this legislation is to help individuals to fix their status. And so an essential worker could be someone who is working off the books, but they are in an essential worker position. But to confirm that, we would need to see what the official definition of this essential worker is going to be. So, hey, the new bill that came out, is there any help for illegal immigrants? So yes, it does. I don't like to use the word illegal immigrants. I know that is just a colloquial way, but to be respectful, I don't say it. But undocumented individuals, there is a new bill. And yes, it is there to assist some undocumented individuals. However, it's going to lay out the final law is going to lay out who these individuals are. It's not going to be everybody, every undocumented immigrant or even a vast majority. But right now they're looking at dreamers, they're looking at farm workers, they're looking at those who were essential workers, and essential workers, remember, this is going to probably be defined in the legislation. And then this is, and also those who came from dangerous countries. So right now, that's the general information we have as to who can possibly get help to fix their status through this bill if it is passed. You're welcome, user 4605. So once who came here with a visa and overstayed. So not everyone who came with a visa and overstayed. So not everyone. That's extremely broad because there are so many individuals that have come here and overstayed. And so it's going to probably be narrower than that. And so that's where we have to look at the legislation. Do I need to disclose my DUI case, but I just expunged it? Do they know about that? So user 4605, absolutely. Even if it was expunged, you will have to disclose it. And if you don't disclose it, they will tag you with misrepresentation, which spells a lot more troubles, a lot more complications for you. So you will have to disclose it. Now, in this case, user 4605, get legal advice. Because when you do have a history of a DUI, it could very well have major implications, just depending on the entire situation. So get legal advice because you don't want to, you want to make sure you understand what you're going through and get the help you need to fix the situation or to get an advocate through it. So schedule a consultation. So, so can my dad apply under this bill? He's been over here 37 years, and it depends on how your dad is going to qualify. How is your dad going to qualify? So is he going to fit within the language of the bill? So very important that your father at the point that the bill is passed, it is then that we would see who's included in that bill and who has an avenue to get conditional residence in the United States. So keep those questions coming. So I'm going to finish up the topic that I'm talking about. So I came to talk about VAWA. What if you're in a situation where you're being mistreated by certain relatives and you are without status, even if you are in another type of status, and you want to be able to stay in the United States and work? This can give you the ability to work, to apply for your own permanent residence, your own work permit, as well as travel document, and then allow you to adjust status to permanent resident. Mistreatment doesn't just mean physical violence. It doesn't mean that you have to have a police report or the police had to be involved or that physical injuries had to be involved. This could mean that you were verbally abused, that you were mentally abused, that you were financially abused. These also count as abuse. So remember, abuse is abuse. Also, if you are subjected to extreme cruelty. So are you in a marriage where your spouse is narcissistic, is being manipulative? Is your spouse doing things to intentionally hurt you? These could also qualify you for VAWA, and it doesn't have to involve physical violence. Also, if you're under 25 and your parent is subjecting you to this treatment, you could qualify as well. If your son or daughter who's 21 and up is subjecting you to this, you could qualify for this. And so I always find that it's important for you to know this. And here is the additional benefit. You can qualify for this even if you're out of status, even if you came across the border without permission. Even if you came here and overstayed, you could qualify for this. So if you are going through a situation like this and you would like status, you would like to fix your status, you would like to fix it in a way where you don't have to leave the country. If you are going through this situation, this is something you should consider. The first thing you should do is schedule a consultation, and then let us go through the details of your circumstances and confirm you qualify for this. So I'm going to head over to Instagram. So for those of you who you want to head over to Instagram too and join me there to continue the conversation, I'm at The Immigration Attorney on Instagram. So you can hop on over there. You can go to Instagram and search The Immigration Attorney, or you can go to the link in my bio and it will take you to the Instagram. So there's the Instagram button there. If you'd like to schedule a consultation, if you need additional advice, you need representation, you would like to apply for VAWA and you want to confirm you qualify, go ahead and call the numbers all over my videos, 561-405-4889. Schedule that consultation. There is a scheduling coordinator who's available up until 11 p.m. tonight, and the phone lines are 24/7. So you can get it out of the way, and then a scheduling coordinator will call you back on the next business day if you don't get her tonight at up until 11 p.m. and put you on my schedule. So get that out of way and get it done before the schedule fills up, because it is filling up fast. So you want to make sure you get in and get that advice you need. So what if I want to start a business in the US? What kind of visa should I apply for? So NAJ is going to depend on how you qualify, what kind of business, what country are you the citizen of, to determine what type of visa would apply. All right, so I'm heading over to Instagram. I will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. if you can't make it to Instagram, or I'll talk to you in a consultation. Have a good night, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m.